Hi, welcome back to Eastbourne Radio. We'd like to wish you all a happy and healthy 2023. In November last year, the Trussell Trust released its mid-year statistics and revealed that 1.3 million food parcels have been handed out across the UK between April and September. In that same 6-month period, Eastbourne Foodbank provided 13,459 of those emergency food parcels, with 4,728 of those going to children. That's a 125% increase when compared to the same period in 2021. These Trussell Trust statistics show that Eastbourne is not unique, and as one of the busiest food banks in the UK, is a true reflection of what is going on in the UK right now. As part of our ongoing series with Eastbourne Foodbank, we visited another satellite operation, today at All Souls Church in the town centre. This is one of 7 food banks that are set up in church halls and community centres across the town each weekday. It's also the busiest. All Souls sees a wide range of clients, some families, but more single people living in temporary accommodation without cooking facilities. As you'll hear, the food bank is providing more than just food and community, but also simple items such as tin openers, pans, second-hand clothes and even baby items. We start by hearing from Freya about the challenges of running such a busy food bank satellite. She told us the food bank team has to be flexible and responsive to need.
Yeah, All Souls is a very different satellite to a lot of the others. It's much busier. It's town centre, so we have a large number of people wanting to come here. We have quite a few people living in temporary accommodation, and we also have quite a large number of mums, young mums. We have some women from the refuge. Things change all the time, and I find that my job means constantly adapting and expecting all the volunteers to constantly adapt, and things will change again. Everyone who comes here is aiming to rebuild their lives, and we're seeing a huge amount of compassion amongst people here within the satellite. I've always wanted to create an environment where it's level, and we see that here, and we're seeing clients helping one another.
In our conversation with Daniel, he reveals the challenges of the universal credit process, how unexpected deductions can leave you short of money, and how issues with landlords not providing a temporary kitchen creates unwanted expense at a time of financial vulnerability.
Hi, my name is Daniel. I'm here today to get a food voucher. I need one due to universal credit taking too much of my universal credit at the beginning of the month. I am starting a new job in December, so what I agreed to pay every month for some reason got deleted, so I just had to pay every single penny that I own off straight away, so that's why I'm here today.
So basically you've had a loan, and then the loan's been deducted from your universal credit. Is that the problem? Is that the deduction?
Yeah, it's basically when you start universal credit you have to wait 5 weeks, but you can get your payment up front, but that payment you will have to pay back over a certain amount of time. Also, I had like a crisis loan that was about 10 years ago when I was on benefits. They finally got in contact with me after 10 years and yeah, so like I was paying back around about £70 a month. That's why I've had to have a few lately, but this month they've taken off about 120.
120 from how much is your actual payment?
370.
That's a lot of money to have taken out at a time when all the other costs of living are going up.
Yeah.
So what are the main challenges for you at the moment, Daniel?
Well, basically, budgeting's not really a problem, but I do have to eat fairly well as I've got eczema. So I need to eat, like a balanced diet, otherwise my eczema just goes horrendously wrong. So that's why I've got, sores on my face, and because I'm just not basically eating that good at the moment. So yeah, basically, and then paying rent is not a problem. That's the first thing I always do before anything else. But yeah, that's it. That's the challenge is, and most of the time you end up finding your money's gone when all that deductions gone off your account. basically, yeah, you only last about 2 weeks.
It's a very stressful situation to be in, and of course that probably doesn't help your eczema either.
No, not at all. But as I said, I start work in December, full-time work. It's not Christmas temp or anything like that, so things are getting better. But without the food bank, I wouldn't know where to turn to, because you don't get help anywhere else. I've tried. You really don't. So, like, they're wonderful people that just, they take their time out of their day they don't get paid, but, they doing it to feed people. And you see how many people are here today. It's just ridiculous, and it's just getting larger and larger. People just can't afford to eat.
And I mean, I looked at the figures because they publish them every month, and the figures for October this year are much higher than the figures for October last year. So this cost of living crisis is escalating and having a big impact in Eastbourne. Have you always lived in Eastbourne, or is it somewhere you've moved to?
I moved here about 2 years ago. I moved because I couldn't get work where I was, so I went here to get work. And I was in employment for about a year, but unfortunately I had a family bereavement, so I had to take some time out of work to get over that. But I've never really noticed how much people struggle since I moved here, if I'm honest. Because I used to live with family back where I used to live, and when you stand on your own 2 feet, which is fine, you pay your own bills, yeah, it's all good. But when things start going badly, that's when you start realising how many people are actually in need, and it's not money they're asking for mainly. It's just a bit of help to get some food. Do you know what I mean? It's a basic thing. Like my landlord, he was doing kitchen work, right? And he left us without a kitchen and a sink, fresh water for 2 months in the middle of summer. So I had to come here for food, because I was just buying microwave meals and ready-made meals, which are expensive. Every microwave meal is like a £5 or £4. Do you know what I mean? So that's say about 15% of my weekly shop. Do you know what I mean? So it's crazy.
At times it has felt that in Eastbourne that the people who are struggling are quite invisible and not seen, and I think that's one of the reasons why we're making the podcast, is to give people the opportunity to have their voices heard. So
no, thank you very much. That's great. But I want to say thank you again to everyone that works here and does what they can do to help out. And it might be 3 hours here, 4 hours you're here, but the amount of people you're helping is incredible. And also, when I do start work, I will be making donations to the food bank, for helping me out over the months that I needed to be helped.
Here, Rupert, a debt benefits advisor at the food bank, sets out how some people entitled to a council tax reduction don't get it, falling between 2 stools within the system, and the stress this causes households struggling in the cost of living crisis.
I think the most shocking thing that we're seeing now increasingly is that even when you've done everything you possibly can do around what we call income maximisation, there's still too much month at the end of the money. People are desperately struggling because of the combination of inflation, soaring energy costs. As we get into the winter, those problems are only set to get worse. And without our food, literally, it would be a case of having to choose between eating or heating.
Just thinking ahead, if you had a magic wand and you could wave it and improve things, what would you really focus on? What would you want to see improved?
Okay, so obviously it's very welcome news in the autumn budget statement to hear that benefits are going to be raised in line with inflation. However, it needs to be understood that inflation's happening right now, here and now, and it also comes against a backdrop where benefit rates were frozen for a number of years before and have never caught up in real terms. So increasingly we're seeing people subject to repossession because they've fallen behind with their rent, and it's still too easy for landlords to start what's called a no-fault eviction process for people when actually the issue is they just want them out because they're in arrears. We need real term rises to local housing rates so that the benefit support for people with housing needs is more realistic, because right now people sometimes have hundreds of pounds a month literally to make up out of their limited financial means because of the inadequacy of housing benefit provision.
One of the things that the Foodbank are keen to have is a better understanding of how people can claim council tax relief. And can you explain a little bit about what the current situation is in Eastbourne and how you'd like it to change?
Certainly, yeah. We do come across a large number of people where council tax debt has gone all the way to bailiff action because they had large bills that should never have been that big in the first place. The situation is that every benefit claimant who's reliant on universal credit is able to claim something called council tax reduction, and it would reduce their council tax bill by 80% of the normal full amount. Now the trouble is that people often think simply by claiming universal credit that will happen automatically. It doesn't. It requires a separate form to be filled in with the council. And unfortunately, sometimes we come across cases where they should have been getting that benefit literally for years and they haven't claimed it, and had all sorts of nightmare problems with court action and enforcement officers, and it should never ever have got to that point. So what we need, I think, is a more proactive approach from the council to identify people that could and should be made claiming this benefit, so that we can prevent the problems arising in the first place. Obviously, one of the main strands of debt that people are facing at the moment is energy debt, and we're really disappointed with the response of a lot of the energy companies. Were far from being sympathetic and helpful towards people that are struggling with their bills. They're often just putting them in the hands of third-party debt collectors and causing people enormous amounts of stress. So I think we need a more proactive approach from the energy companies, and we also need a recognition that while very welcome, the help that's been given towards people's energy bills, the £66 a month they're currently getting, is a sticking plaster on an open wound.
We spoke to a single mum with 3 children who is living in Eastbourne after fleeing domestic abuse. She moved here recently and told us the Foodbank is a lifeline for her family, providing more than just food, and how our town has become their safe place. She said she doesn't get any child maintenance visits and comes to the Foodbank every couple of weeks to feed her children. The Foodbank has also been able to give her help with school shoes and uniforms. Eastbourne has become a home for this young mum, who's made friends at the Foodbank and loves spending time on the beach with her children. Like many of the Foodbank clients, this family are on a pay-as-you-go meter, and when the money runs out, the lights go out. She explained energy costs were one of her main concerns this winter. As numbers grow at All Souls, the volunteers and staff see people facing various financial emergencies. Team leader Jill tells us that a change in circumstances is sometimes all it takes to leave someone with no choice but to use a food bank.
If people can lose their job, they can suddenly get a big bill that comes in, they have to replace something in the home, and that just tips them over the edge, and they're not able to cope, and that can spiral into debt, and it just gets worse and worse for them. So I think you're absolutely right. Sudden changes of circumstances, people can just manage, they can go along just barely managing, and one thing goes wrong and that throws it all for them.
I mean, it's quite large, the rooms here, although I can see the pressures. Do you foresee being able to continue coping here, or is it?
Well, I think here also, as you say, we do have the space, we have the room, and we can get more people in. And the priority probably is having sufficient volunteers that we can get people through quickly.
Anything else that you'd like to tell us about the food bank here and your thoughts for the future?
A lovely story a couple of weeks ago, and one of our clients who's been coming for, say, about 18 months, came in to say he's got a job, to thank us all, gave me a big hug, and said how can he donate some money to the food bank. So that was a lovely story to see that somebody was moving on with their life and wanted to give something back now that he had the opportunity to do it.
Lara, a support worker across all the food bank satellites in our town, chats with me about creating Moses baskets for new mums, working beyond the food to find other needed items, and how guests share and help each other out.
I've been here since September, so it's a full-time role. I spend every morning going out into the different satellites around the town that we run, and during that time I can do all sorts of different things. So I might be handing out food, for example, but most of my time is spent talking to the clients and getting to know a little bit more about, maybe why they're here and whether there's anything else that I can do to support them. So my role is sort of going a little bit beyond what we offer within the satellites, a little bit beyond the food. So I may be sourcing different things for different clients. For example, they might not have a towel to dry themselves with, might not have a duvet to keep themselves warm, might be about to have a baby and hasn't got anything ready for that. So at the warehouse we have all sorts of amazing things that we've been donated by fabulous people in our community, and I'm really lucky to be able to go and source those things and then get those out to our clients as and when they need them. So it's fabulous.
I mean, that's a remarkable range of things that people might need. So how do you sort of anticipate that? I mean, how do you stock, really, I guess, in a simple term, for what might be lots and lots of different things?
So I think initially it was really focused around babies and young children. So when I arrived in September, there was quite a lot already at the warehouse. Things like cots that people have donated, and clothes for children. And we also do the Best Start baskets, where we set them up to a Moses basket. We fill it with everything a new mum might need. So all those things were really well established. And so those things are quite easy to source, but there are other things that we might put out a plea on Facebook for. So I know we're currently after a double buggy for someone, a collapsible double buggy for someone. It might be that I ask friends and family and other people that I know, do you have whatever it is, and often things seem to miraculously appear when we need them as well. So often I'll be thinking, I desperately need a coat, a girl's coat age 5 to 6, and then within a week someone's donated it. So yeah, it's all sorts of different ways of sourcing things for people.
That's brilliant, and it's great that things do appear eventually, because people obviously need them quite badly. I mean, in your time since you've been here in September, what are your main observations, or things have surprised you, or you now understand that perhaps are just new things you've learned?
I don't think I've been particularly surprised by anything. I think that I've learnt a huge amount about why our clients are here. I've been able to sort of spend that time chatting to people and really learning about the different situations that people have been in. And I think what I've learned probably mostly is how important it is not to be judgmental at all of why people are here, and to, everybody can fall on those times where things get a little bit difficult and challenging, and I think it's amazing that we're able to be here to help them out, really, and also for them to help each other out as well, which is something that we've noticed happening more and more. So we've had clients supporting each other. We had a client here last week actually who needed some work boots, desperate to go to work, but couldn't afford the boots that they needed, and another client heard that and said, "Oh, I've got a pair, you can have those." So those sorts of things are amazing. We've got another lady who sorts out her granddaughter's clothes and gives them to another mum. So I think I've learned a lot about the way people want to help each other out as well. I think the variety of people here is phenomenal. We have people from all walks of life. We have people from all over the world. We have people with all sorts of different needs, and I think, it's just an incredible thing to be able. It's a real honour to be able to be in this position and to hear, and to learn about how we can support other people as well.
Thank you for listening. As a post-Christmas update, in December alone, Eastbourne Foodbank as a whole provided food for 1,961 adults and 1,117 children. That's a total of 30,780 meals, and overall a 48% increase over the same period last year. If you want to help, there's several ways: by donating, volunteering, or partnering with the Foodbank. You can find out more about how to do this in the link below.